Thank you, Erica. That was great. We at Qualaroo, this is really exciting stuff for us, obviously. Some examples, just kind of with us working with customers and gathering feedback. We had an example of a customer that wanted to understand, why potential buyers weren't buying. And so they ran this survey, and because it's so easy, you can run it on your website. And what happened was the next morning they had a lot of complaints, or not complaints, but concerns. They had ended up targeting, they forgot to identify who they were going to target. And so they were targeting existing customers as well. So it sent a little bit of confusion, but it's just an example of how easy it is to run a survey. And if you don't do the work beforehand in terms of who you want to target and why, you can get feedback that's not, pertinent to the business decision that you're trying to make. So context is everything. We do have a couple of questions, about 3 questions that were submitted prior to the webinar. So I want to go through those here, and we still have about 15 minutes. So somebody asked, how do you know when you have enough responses?
That's a really good question. So you really want to think, how big is the population that you want your the results to represent? And there are some good sample size calculators out there. So you can say, okay, I want, since you're not going to do a census and just ask, try to ask every single person, you're going to have a representative sample. And you can calculate that sample to show you what level of confidence you want, and say you want to be like 95% confident in your answer, which is a really common metric. Then if, your population is, 10,000 people, you're going to want to survey about, you're going to want to get about 1,000 responses to really feel confident.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll include some of those sample size calculators in the follow-up blog post with the video. You touched on this a little bit, but there's a question about what steps can you take with the feedback from your users after you've received the feedback. So, once you've gathered feedback and you have people that have submitted, and you've activated on it, what are the next steps? Do you create user groups? Are they going to continue to be a pool of people that you continue to survey, or is it good to get fresh users in your sample size, etc.?
I'm a big fan of getting really fresh people, because otherwise, like, it's really easy for people to all of a sudden like stop representing the mindset. Like, people can know too much. And if what you want is a real sense of how this is affecting people, I'd say you want to talk to new people as much as possible. I know some organizations have like groups of customers, like loyal customers that they go back to again and again. And I think sometimes that can be a helpful conversation, but as much as possible in doing research, because things change. Right? The world changes, the competitive landscape changes, the economy changes that can really affect people's behavior. And I think you really want to keep going out to make sure that you're not getting information that represents a past snapshot that isn't relevant anymore. And the only way that you can keep your business responsive to changes in the world, like, it might be the case that you have a set of customers that are really loyal and really excited about you because they became your customers at a certain point, but maybe everything's changed, and so you can't rely on their feedback in order to meet the current customer needs.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I mean, yeah, things change, and sometimes, it's great to understand like why people, like, a lot of people have user groups and loyalty groups, but it's also great to have a pool of users that you want to understand, they're not customers of yours, and you understand, why not, just to have a fresh perspective. Okay, last question. Do you think you need to ask for feedback in every business decision that you make. So from, the marketer that's trying to, optimize website conversion, to the product owner that's trying to increase, product engagement, to the customer success person that's trying to reduce churn. I mean, when we're trying to attain these business goals and these, we have success metrics in place. I mean, do we need feedback in every decision that we're trying to, every goal that we're trying to hit?
I think that would represent sometimes an impossible level of gathering data. And I think that's something that every business needs to decide intentionally, right? You have to know, first of all, you have to have the clarity of, okay, what decisions are we making? Because it's all a question of confidence. And you might say, well, we have a high degree of confidence based on what we already know in this set of decisions, but we don't think we have enough evidence to make this other set of decisions. So it might be the case that you know enough about customer behavior and you feel confident in the data you've already gathered that you don't have to gather more feedback and data. Like that's, people talk about intuition a lot, and the important thing to think about intuition is that it can be either experience or confirmation bias, meaning it can be based on something you've already observed, or that gut sense you have could be based on something you hope is true. And so that's a real intellectual discipline to work with your team to say, okay, are we operating on this assumption because it's based on something we've learned, or are we just speculating? And if you can be honest and say, okay, this is a really big business decision. This is a high priority. We're placing a big bet, because that can be a really, some helpful concrete language to think like, okay, how confident are we in the bet that we're placing on investing this time or these resources? And sometimes you're like, okay, this is low risk for us. We feel really comfortable making this bet. And other times you might say, okay, our whole business is riding on this. We're investing a lot of resources. So that's going to be something we're going to really want to gather a lot of evidence and data around, versus things that might be like, oh, it's a smaller tweak, we'll just try it. And so that's going to be different for every context. Again, that's the designer's answer is always, it depends. And my advice for that is always work with your team to keep each other really honest that you're not doing things because you want to do them. You're not doing things because they feel good. You're doing the things that are really in the best interests of your business and in the best interests of your customers, based not on how you hope they behave, but how they actually behave. We've worked with many clients in the past that had a lot of assumptions about their customers. And once we really started asking hard questions and unpacking those, we learned that they were actually just making a lot of things up. Like, this is why personas as a tool are so suspect now in the research community, because so often it's like, oh, let's make up some things about our customers. And so what I'd say is really, really the hardest part in this. Like, running the surveys is easy. Keeping your team really clear and really honest on what you need to know and why and what you're going to do with that information, that's the hard part.
Totally. Yeah, we couldn't agree more. That sums it up, I guess, for your presentation. I mean, it is easy to run these surveys, but a lot of the work is in the beginning, understanding who to target. And then at the end, going through the feedback, that's also, a time consuming part, but the most important part. So we couldn't agree more. So Erika, this has been a great discussion. Some great topics in there, and what we're going to do is, we have the recording, we're going to post it to our blog, and we're also going to do transcribe it and put the kind of your main points in there, and we'll send it out to everyone registered. And then of course, for further questions, you can reach out to me, and and I can relay them to Erika. All right. Thank you everyone for joining. Thanks, Erika, for being with us today. Great discussion.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care. Bye now.